Hey friends, you're on the Insecurity Project with Jamin. I have as my guest today Bryce Holdaway, the one and only. He's the co-host of The Property Couch. He's the co-host of ABC's Escape from the City. He's the co-host of Foxtel's Location Australia, and author of Make Money Simple Again, which I've got a copy of here. What's the first book called?
Mate, The Armchair Guide to Property Investing, How to Retire on $2,000 a Week.
I really blew it there. I was on a roll and then I forgot where it all began. Bryce is definitely respected as one of the leading experts in not only property but finance in the country. And it's just a real treat to be able to have you and be able to pick your brain about this subject of the interaction between money and insecurity. So, thanks so much for being willing to come on the show and add some value and wisdom.
Thanks for having me, mate. I'm excited to chat to you because our two worlds colliding, I think, is a really exciting space because I get to deal with the mechanics of money and finance every day, and you get to sort of deal with how people get on track and derail every day. So that happens a lot. You see that a lot when it comes to money. So I'm excited to see what we can collaborate on to see how we can help your audience.
Yeah, beautiful. So, my stated intention with the Insecurity Project is to end the unnecessary suffering caused by this unresolved fear of not being good enough. And I think one of the biggest areas this suffering shows up is in money. And it almost impacts every single facet of life. And so many people are in financial stress. And I was reading some interesting stats. You probably know them better than I do about, the correlation or the level of financial stress can be equal to any level of physical stress and injury. It's a very significant, not only psychological, but physical experience to be under financial duress and suffering. So obviously you're the expert when it comes to thinking about money and improving your money situation. But as we'll explore in this conversation, there's a bunch of stuff behind the scenes impacting a person's ability to improve their financial situation, not just the mechanics of money, but the way that they show up in their relationship with money. So I think we can have a really useful conversation that people will find very relevant and be able to apply. So I'm interested in your take on this. Like your money smart system in your book it's great, it works, it's effective, it's not complicated. You've road tested it over the years and you know that it works. But I'm sure you experience lots of people who understand the mechanics, but still get tripped up in the mindset and some stuff that they can't even see about their own relationship with money. What's been your experience with people who still struggle to implement, even though it's so simple?
Yeah, well, the basic premise that after doing this for 20 plus years and observing people implement something and then derail is really simply that money is simple and behavior is hard. Because the money smart system you referred to is, mate, it's really, really straightforward. It takes you 10 minutes a month to monitor. It takes you not very long to set up, and it really is one offset account, one credit card, one debit card, and that is it. And it helps you not unconsciously overspend ever again. So you'd think that everyone would do it and implement it, but the fact that the implementing is not enough is really what the challenge is, and that's what I'm seeing sort of every day. Because if anyone reads the book or if anyone understands the model, it certainly isn't rocket science. It doesn't prove that we are PhD level knowledge. But what it does show is that not enough people are doing it. We're not actually taught any system, but if you do follow it, you get in your own way. And as you know, I'm very much a student of your teaching. So the fact that we have to fulfill our core needs, either resourcefully or unresourcefully. I see it being done unresourcefully all the time in the space of money, and I think that that's why behaviour is hard, because the money stuff is super straightforward.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting. Madness is a word that I like. It's a very strong word, but I think it's the only word strong enough to describe what shows up for people in terms of behavior and the hard behavior stuff, because it's against all better judgment, all rational thinking, all logic, that people still find a way to trip themselves up, self-sabotage, and not implement the stuff they know is going to improve their situation. So I think it's definitely worthy of exploring. What is that about? Like, what is happening behind the scenes in a person's mind, in their story, in their beliefs about themselves that would cause them to not do the things they want to do, not do the things they know are going to work. So, so let's explore this idea of why it is that people can't, won't, don't implement the stuff, because I'm sure people like observe themselves and just go, yeah, it is actually so frustrating. I said this was going to be the year last year that I was going to get my money stuff sorted, and here I am again, still suffering.
Well, Jamin, you're a married man, so you'll know this, and anyone who's got a relationship of any sort, they realise that two worlds are colliding and they're coming together. So when I married my wife, what I thought was normal in how you would raise children, how you would get married, how you would live. In some cases there was alignment. In other cases there was like, well, she's like, no, that's not normal. This is normal, and it might have been the exact opposite or whatever. So I think that really, applying that to money. When you were growing up, if you picked up a coin and put it in your mouth, and your parents ran over to you and said, don't do that, money's dirty. Or if you grew up in an environment, in a lot of religious circles where money was very much seen as being evil, or if you grew up in a household where abundance was the norm, and so the idea of money flowing into you is straightforward. If you're on the opposite end of the scale, where you grew up and there was never enough, you lived in a scarcity mentality, all those sorts of programming set up your beliefs, and they really come into play, particularly all areas of life, particularly when it comes to money, because we always sign off on our podcast, knowledge is empowering, but only if you act on it. And that's designed to get people to move from their inertia from doing nothing to doing something. But it actually is still missing a really relevant piece, because knowledge plus action plus healthy, positive beliefs are really what you set up for success. Because I've seen on many occasions, people, they acquire the knowledge and then they actually take the action, but because they've got negative beliefs around it, that derails, and therefore they usually end up going back to where they started, because they rise and fall to the level of their heart, which really forms around what beliefs they have around everything, but in this case that we're chatting about, around money.
Yeah, that's such a great way of describing it. And you might have heard me tell the story before. I tell it frequently, but it was that exact experience for me growing up, seeing no examples of rich people and good people. And so the messaging and the modeling was that you can't be rich and godly. You can't be a good person and a rich person. So that was this unconscious agreement that I decided was true, that no matter how many systems I followed, how much action I took, how much knowledge I developed around money, that was this handbrake thing that kept getting in the way, kept derailing any sense of financial gain, because in effect, it was dangerous to get more money. Unconsciously, I'd linked money with being bad. And so my unconscious, because it loves me and it's looking out for me, is keeping me safe from danger, says, well, yeah, you can learn as much as you like about money, but you're not going to get any more, because then you'll leave your wife, you'll become a bastard, you'll be rude and mean and unkind and selfish, and that's not going to be good for anyone. So no to money. You must see that stuff all the time with people trying so hard to get in the property game and tidy up their money.
I do a lot, mate. And I think the little signal for anyone who's listening to this is, if you're trying too hard and it feels like you're going against the grain just to do some basic tidy up, it means you have a belief system, an underlying belief that you need to rebuild, because something, and as you say, quite often it's subconscious, so we really need to dig deep. But we need to identify it, then we need to weaken it, and then we need to change it. And the weakening is largely around, so for example, for me, I grew up in a household where work equaled worth, right? So it's very difficult for me in the early days. It's taken a little while for me to break down the belief. I have a business. The business pays me a dividend. By nature, that dividend is the business going to work to earn the money rather than me going to work to earn the money. But I saw my dad work long hours. I saw him work 2 jobs. So that's actually a belief that I had to undo. And if I'm being totally honest with you, it's still something that I have to catch myself
Mm.
making sure that it's not easy come, easy go, because I grew up in a little bit of a scarcity household. My parents, I was a middle class family, but um, it, my dad formed his worldview from the newspaper and the news. So there was fear-based scarcity sorts of ideas and thinking. So for me, it was like, well, there's not enough to go around, so you got to make sure you get your own. Work equals, my self-worth. So again, you have to, because I see people all the time who are experiencing the fruits of life. Money flows in very easily. They've got a very strong concept of the value that they provide, and they're happy to let the money flow in and out of their life in a way. And then I see other people who should have similar circumstances, and they continually have derailers. So it
Mm.
is very very powerful and very very critical that we understand what beliefs we have around money, because knowledge and action aren't enough. I've seen it time and time again.
Mm.
And as you said in the intro about a system that we adopt and any other system, mate, there's not much to them. They're pretty straightforward. So there's something else that gets in the way.
I'll just rewind to something you said at the start of that, and that is, I thought it was really, really useful that if you feel like you're going against the grain, so if you had this clear plan, yet it feels like there's this resistance piece, or it's not natural, there's something that's hard about it, that's a really good indicator that there's some internal agreement you're breaking, or some belief that's colliding with your action. And because it's hidden and from the subconscious, my experience of that is it's always stronger. At least 90% of daily function is driven from the unconscious. So if you don't deal with that or don't change that, it will win. It will win every time. It will override the action plan. The moment you get tired, which we do, then the unconscious commitment comes out again and we're back to where we started. So really good thing to flag. When you feel it's hard, good chance to check in and go, what's that? What's happening here? What's going on beneath the surface?
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
which is interesting, right? Because again, that sounds simple and easy, but self-awareness is a challenge. I find that, I'm sure you see that. People resist having a look under the hood. What's your thoughts about why people resist that? Why do they avoid the personal development piece and think that this whole world of beliefs and insecurity and fear and story is a bit too scary to look into? What do you think's going on there?
Well, it takes a bit of work, doesn't it? And also it requires you to, and again, preaching to the choir, but it requires you to step into pain rather than
Mm.
when we're naturally wired to avoid it, right? But I kind of remember that even when I started working with you a number of years ago, you kind of think that I engaged you. I loved the principles you talked about. We worked together for a set period of time, and then I remember thinking, all right, when I get to the finish line, how together am I going to be? Right, like
Mm.
and the time frame that you and I are working on was an 8-week time frame, and I'm thinking in 8 weeks I am going to be like clear of insecurity, and then the rude shock at the end of it was, what? Hang on a second, there's still more work to do here. And
Mm.
so I go from understanding what is derailing me and what is causing me to be insecure about it being insecure, to then having to implement that over a period of time and knowing that it's a long a journey. So you're better placed than me to answer why that is. But my
Yeah.
observations is because it in a world that wants instant gratification, it takes time, and it takes commitment, and it takes you doing something that it's easy to kick back and invest in lifestyle, but sometimes you want to invest in yourself, and that's that's odd for people to do, right?
It is odd for people to do. There's an interesting thing that I see happen with people who begin a coaching process, and it almost happens every time, and that is there's this switch that happens in their pleasure-pain association. So good old Tony Robbins, everything we do is motivated either by the avoidance of pain or pursuit of pleasure. And people typically start linking a lot of pain to looking under the hood and examining what's going on, and a lot of pleasure to comfort and safety of staying here and hiding and avoiding that. But awareness leads to more choice. And if you have more choice, you make better choices. And so there's this really amazing fruit that happens when you go, oh my goodness, I just discovered something I've never seen before, and I have the agency to change it. And when I change it, the impact on my life is positive. That felt wonderful. Wow, I wonder what else I could discover. I wonder what else I could shift. And all of a sudden, this idea of seeing and knowing yourself and even rebuilding the relationship with yourself becomes quite pleasurable. And the idea of staying in the dark and hiding and avoiding that stuff becomes quite painful. And so these natural motivators seem to take over, and you find yourself gravitating to more self-help books, more coaching conversations, more journaling exercises, more meditation, more reflection, and therefore more growth. And that seems to be the trajectory people take when they taste the fruit of awareness. Cool. So, all right. So in your experience, what do you think is the connection between a person's relationship with themselves and their relationship with money? How do you see that one play
out? I think complex, right? So you and I both subscribe to. You referenced Tony Robbins before, his 6 core needs. I think the more that we don't think we're enough, the more that we are likely to need to use money to satisfy the status that we're okay. So, so for example, if you derive significance externally, I've got a mate, right, who's been he's been bankrupt twice, and I see the patterns continuing to evolve, and I think to myself, here's the head knowledge. This is what you need to do to actually not do that again. But time and time again, a lot of people don't get bankrupt once, let alone twice. And what I've observed is the fact that if he doesn't feel that he's enough, he needs to get significance externally. He gets significance a lot by his physical appearance. So therefore, he needs to have the latest clothes. He needs to have the best haircut. He needs to have a new car regularly. He needs to buy a motorbike, and it's loud and it's hotted up, and so therefore, it's very difficult to serve two masters, because if you're serving the master of, stewarding your money very well, you will find it very difficult if you're serving the equal master of serving your lifestyle and your appearance and your need for significance externally. So, I can't help but use the frameworks that we've talked about over a number of years. But the more that you understand how you are deriving your significance through external things and trying to bring that back to deriving it internally, the less likely you are to need the latest jeans or the latest iPhone or the latest whatever it is that you get, and you're better able to serve your need to again steward that money. I've made a lot of observations. I've made a lot of observations, particularly of people that need that esteem through things, and they are generally the ones that struggle a lot because they can't. How do you describe it? You're gonna serve these needs in a vacuum. You're gonna serve them anyway, whether it's resourcefully or unresourcefully. And if you don't have a better strategy, they'll be unresourceful. So that's what I see a lot with money.
Wow. Warren Buffett came to mind when you were talking about that. I don't know Warren. I'm not sure if you do. The little I do know of him, or I think I know about him, is that he still lives in the same house that he's lived in most of his adult life, still drives the same car. He lives a very modest lifestyle. and understanding a bit about his investment strategy over the years. It seems very rational, non-emotional. He seems to have some key principles that he sticks to, happy for the long haul. So it seems like he's an example of someone who's actually quite secure. He doesn't need to prove anything, and because he's able to then treat money as a resource, and he's already happy with his lifestyle, happy with his possessions, he's then free to have a really beautiful relationship with money and experience wonderful abundance. And has become one of the most wealthiest men in the world, and now uses his wealth to do incredible things. I was watching Netflix Inside Bill's Brain, and just the relationship with Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and some of the philanthropic work they do. It's really quite extraordinary. So.
Well, mate, you've hit a very good point, because I have recently watched Inside Bill's Brain, which is amazing, and The Oracle of Omaha, which is the documentary for Warren Buffett, is for someone who wants to really understand what the concept that you just talked about at a headline level is. They really should watch that, because there's a scene where you show he's lived in the house that he's lived in for many years. This guy could buy any house in the world he wants, and he still lives in this humble house. The only thing he splurges on is his car. The documentary shows how he drives through McDonald's every morning, and if the stock market's up, he treats himself to I can't remember, it's maybe a quarter pounder, and if it's down, he gets a cheeseburger. This is a guy that has enough resource to never let anything worry him ever again about what he buys, and he remains humble. So it's someone who has placed a value on money that's different to most of us. So I think the message of today is the colliding of a couple of things. One is around making sure our beliefs match up so that we can see life as abundance rather than scarce, but also two, really dialing into the frameworks that you've built a platform around, about understanding what makes you insecure, identifying them, and then building a strategy and an understanding around how you can make yourself more secure. So you and I have worked together. I would say that I have made enormous strides in. You say people are insecure about being insecure. For me, I feel like my knowledge and understanding is to a point where I'm satisfied that we're progressing, but I've still got a long way to go. And so I'm forever looking for these markers around making sure that I'm secure about myself, so that I don't then need to outsource how I feel about myself. And as a result, the money flow is so much better than when I first started my career back in the late 90s, where I kept on finding that I'd get money and it would go. I'd get money and it would go. I'd get money and I'd hit a roadblock and it would go. And it was frustrating. And it was at that point where I realized, well, I'm getting the resistance here, what we talked about before. I'm getting the resistance here. So therefore, there must be something more to it, because if I can't learn this lesson, I think I'm going to keep repeating this for the rest of my life.
Yeah, wow. That's so cool. Here's a question I didn't prep you with, but do you think a lot of people believe money can make them secure, or that they have this dream that security is found in money? If I have more money, I will feel more secure about my existence. So therefore, the hope is that money is going to save the day.
I think so. Yes, I think people do think that. It's been proven that once you earn, in Australia, it's about $70,000 to $80,000, right? Anything over that doesn't necessarily increase your happiness. So if you're on $20,000 a year, more money actually increases your happiness, because you can put better food on the table, you can put better shelter. But there comes a threshold where people just aren't actually. It becomes diminishing return on happiness. So
diminishing.
So it's interesting.
So more money can make you unhappier.
Mate, all the time. I've seen it time and time again, because people then think that, well, the next thing, and it rarely ever gives you any lasting feeling, sense of great feeling. I think people are chasing a feeling, right? So they want some feeling that they perceive. So it's never the Porsche or the jet. They think that's what they're after, right? Because that's the thing that provokes a feeling. But when they get there, they want the next thing. So for me, I reckon if you break down that, what we are actually after is a feeling of peace. That peace can come from having not much. That peace can come from the same peace can come from being grateful about what you've got rather than grateful about wanting things that you don't have. Once you break it down, you realize that it's not the money, it's the feeling, and you can create the feeling where you are without needing to have all of the material resources to get that. But without that self-awareness, we will keep chasing that. We will keep burning people, relationships, countries, create wars in the pursuit of it, because most people don't get to that sense of self-awareness around it's not the thing, it's the feeling that they're after.
Wow, and the feeling peace. I don't know if I've ever heard it described like that, but I think you're right. This sense of peace.
Like, you've been around plenty of people who have got lots of money, and they've got probably more stress. They've probably got more worries. They've got more the most beautiful home, but they don't have any real friends. Like you know, there's billionaires who can't find in their diary an opportunity to take a whole week off without their calendar melting down. I mean, imagine being a billionaire and you can't take a week off.
Yeah.
Like, how's that for irony?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That was amazing. Like I love conversations that I get lost in, because I just think what a beautiful thing to be able to talk about meaningful stuff. And I value the way that you share that and frame that, because I think that is such an important way of understanding this. People suffer, they suffer needlessly because of chasing things they think are going to solve the real yearning desire for peace. And I think money is a wonderful experience. To have a very happy relationship with money is one of the beautiful opportunities we have in life. And you've got the incredible mechanics and systems around helping people do exactly that, and are so well respected for your opinion and track record around that. But if we're able to help people solve the real yearning of their hearts and come into that space with peace already, then their capacity to really enjoy the experience of having more money and having more freedom with that money has got to increase, which is super exciting.
Mate, I think if I enjoy the opportunity to riff it with you all the time, but I think as I get I've spent the last 20 plus years in the money space, helping people property understand their finance, and I was pushing my son on the swing on Sunday, and I just could that point that I was discussing before was so fresh in my mind that you know the feeling that I had at that point in time was the feeling that you're chasing when you're chasing money. I was pushing him on a swing. I didn't need to be anywhere, mate. I was for those people who know Australia, it was in Lorne, which is on the Great Ocean Road. So I was looking at this amazing landscape. The sun was out. I had my family around me, and I just thought, like, how good is this? I mean, this is it. This is where you've arrived. I remember Keith Urban was being interviewed, and he talked about how Nicole Kidman was on tour with him, and she looked at him, and he was getting ready for a concert, and she just looked at him and she goes, just take a moment, because just so you know, this is it. This is what it is that you've worked for. Like, it's not another concert. It's just you've got everything you need. You don't have to prove it with another concert. You don't have to prove it with another record. And I remember him saying it fully grounded him and reminded him that it's not always about the chase. And I think that for me, that's been huge in the last 12 months. Around, it's not about the next thing. It's not about the chase. It's about being grateful for what I've got. And once I've understood it's about chasing the feeling, I see that feeling all the time. I see that feeling when I have a $5 ice cream with my kids, or it doesn't have to be a big purchase or a big splurge. And mate, I'm no saint. I still got work to do, mate. But I can assure you that I'm more focused on the stuff that you do every day in my own world because I know that that's where the dividends are the greatest. I'll see the world full of abundance. Money will continue to keep flowing, and I won't need to prove my self-worth by what I do and what I've accumulated. But I'm 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 still human. I've still
Yeah,
got
sure.
insecurities, but
Yeah,
I'm moving in the right, certainly well and truly in the right space.
yeah, amazing. That feels like a really cool place to leave the conversation for today. There's for those listening, this is something I hope to do every month because there's lots of stuff that we can talk about and explore all kinds of intricacies in how money and insecurity collide and keep the conversation going so that this is top of mind for you and you find increasing ways of solving the peace problem so that you can then enjoy getting better at money and having more money and having the freedom that money brings. So thanks so much again for your time, Bryce. I'll have the links to the things we've mentioned in the show notes. And look, if you are someone who is ready for the mechanics of improving the quality of your relationship with money, Bryce and Ben are the people. They're leading that conversation in Australia, if not in the world, in many ways. So if you're looking at property investment, and if you are indeed after the idea of making money simple again, get the book. I'll put the links to where they can find you, Bryce, but it's not that hard to work out how to find you, I'm sure. And yeah, look forward to talking again soon. Sorry, did I cut you off? You were about to sign off with something witty and
No, I was just going to say thanks for the opportunity. I'm excited about what we might be able to get done in 2020 together. If anyone wants to go to makemoneysimpleagain.com.au, they can get a free digital version of that book. For your listeners, but mate, yeah, I reckon we can do some cool stuff this year. So I'm looking forward to it. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, let's do that. That's great. All right, we'll leave it there.